Welcome to talk about exploratory testing. One of my favorite topics. This is a really nice and interesting topic. Also my favorite way to test. Very good stuff. Let's start with raise of hands. How many has done exploratory testing? Get the feel of it. Like 1/3, maybe half even. Yeah. Good. So let's see what kind of exploratory testing have people done. There are many ways to do it. It's not only one way to do exploratory testing. It is a developing thing. People invent new ways to do it all the time, and it fits in different places and so on. Anyway, my name is Kari Kakkonen. I am from Knowit in Finland. I'm glad to be here today. Yesterday talking about agile testing, today about exploratory testing. So this should be good fun. I'm also one of the authors of the Agile Testing Foundations book. At Knowit I work as a consultant and trainer. Also I'm in charge of the training services at Knowit. I also have some positions of trust, namely the treasurer of ICQB, International Software Testing Qualifications Board, and many other things. I've seen software testing for over 20 years now in really many contexts, so I've had the privilege to understand and see testing in many different places. Let's see what we can pour out of that to you in this 45 minutes. Knowit as a group is 2,000 people in Nordic countries, ICT services, really many things in many areas, but that's enough about the background. So let's go into the exploratory testing, what that actually is. So I'll actually have 3 parts in my talk. First one is what is exploratory testing, why should you do it? Next part is the practicalities, how you usually behave in exploratory testing. And the last part is more about thinking skills, and then that ends to the discussion about the future of exploratory testing. Where is it going? So, what is exploratory testing? Many characterizations. Many come from different Americans, James Buck and Kane, Elizabeth Hendrickson. Lots of people have discussed that. Also ICQB obviously talked about exploratory testing. And really it is about learning and designing tests and executing tests at the same time. That seems to be the conclusion everyone agrees on. So it's continuous learning, really. Learning, I think, is the key part there. You should learn about everything possible. That adds to your experience, that adds to your skills as an exploratory tester. And then also, obviously, the simultaneous thing of doing everything at the same time. So you don't prepare test cases beforehand, you are inventing them as you go. When you need to execute something, you design the test at that point. So that's some descriptions. Some typical terms that are related to exploratory testing that are different from many other types of testing. When exploratory testers refer to plans, they usually talk about test charters, sometimes in plural, charters, sometimes just singular, charter. And a test charter is the overview of how you are going to spend your time in different areas, different focus areas or functional areas of your application under test or system under test. So testing areas, I like to talk about testing areas. So test charter would refer to your testing areas. And what is a testing area then? It is one focus area at a time. And when you have many testing areas or many focus areas, you can prioritize these testing areas between each other. So you can spend more time on an important area and less time on something else. And testing area is always more than just individual functionality. That is usually the defining factor. It's a little bit broader scope. It doesn't need to be functional. Testing area, it could be also, let's take a look at the performance characteristics of this particular testing area or functionality. So it can be also other types of focuses. Exploration, then again, like the name, exploratory testing, refers to the fact that we don't know exactly what we are going to see and find out when we test, which is quite natural. Even though there are maybe some requirements or user stories available, it's not the whole truth. Software will be always, anyway, a lot more than just the requirements or user stories in Agile. It will be many other things. So you explore, you look around, you find different things in the system. So it's sort of an adventure where you look into interesting places, at the same time keeping in mind what was your testing area focus at that given time. And then with testing sessions, that refers to session-based test management, SBTM, which we'll take a quick look a little bit later. So sessions is the idea about how you manage the time in your exploratory testing. How much time will you put into different areas? So again, to simplify, more time into important areas, less time into less important areas. Quite straightforward in that sense. A typical testing session is 1.5 hour to even 2 hours. So it is the human concentration cycle, really. People can't concentrate on any one item for more than 2 hours. And it's individual, of course, so exploratory testers should find their own concentration cycle and use that as a unit. That's a good idea. So exploratory testing is about learning all the time. So what kind of learning happens and how does it actually go? So we can start from the left here. So you start testing, you do one test, you look around, you observe, you see how the system behaves, you interpret what it means. Maybe it is what you expect, maybe it's something strange, something interesting, maybe you get some more ideas, some questions, I wonder what that does and I wonder where I can continue from here. If you find something worth reporting, like a bug or just a strange thing that could be a bug, well obviously you report. But as you do that, you also form opinions about what could you do next. And that leads into your next decisions about your next actions. So you design your next actions, your next tests, and again you test. So this cycle is very quick. It could be one cycle like that in 30 seconds, a minute, 10 minutes. Now that really depends on what kind of things you are testing. Some things are very quick to try, some take time and concentration even in exploratory testing. So it's a different thing if you are testing a e-commerce site or if you are testing let's say a healthcare application with a lot of complex calculations. Both of them are very viable exploratory testing targets. You can use it to many items. Just the cycle time is different. Exploratory testing is about learning from different sources. So just to simplify, you can learn from how a system might behave. Some of that learning might come from a requirement. Some might be coming only from your test execution at a time. Also, you will obviously learn and interpret how the customers might behave with the system, or you can even talk to the customers, obviously, and get some ideas and then even test those ideas in the system and the test. So that's one source for learning. Another great source is, of course, people. Different kind of people involved in creating software and systems. Developers. You can, by testing continuously the same software, you get some ideas about what kind of mistakes some developers do, and maybe you realize that one developer is always very effective in this particular type of software, and maybe another one is usually in a hurry, and especially on Mondays maybe a little bit messy. Whatever. You can also learn about testers themselves, yourself and other testers. So pair testing is usually something that is very much used because with pair testing you can learn from the others and understand that somebody else might test differently, and you can use that again to your own benefit in your own testing. So many kinds of things to learn from people as well. So many sources. But why should we do exploratory testing? Well, we can use some knowledge-based sentences here. So we know it's good. It's good because it uses skills of many people, uses the differences of different people. It gives you opportunity to get faster feedback to developers. So, but all these things and reasons, they are reasons that you can quantify by experience of other people or even sort of direct proof. So we know that exploratory testing is good, but still people might object, why should we do exploratory testing? So another point of view is testers themselves. Why should we as testers use exploratory testing? What kind of things could we do? Well, we could spend more time in testing rather than planning something. That is usually the biggest reason for many testers. You know, I can actually test, I can find stuff. This is why I'm in testing profession. I can test and find bugs rather than plan something. I can also maybe get better view on quality. I can maybe explore some side effects. There are many aspects on why, as a tester, I would like to use exploratory testing. Maybe the most important part for is missing from this one, which is fun. Exploratory testing is just so much more fun than many, or any, in my opinion, any other type of testing. It is just good fun. So testers tend to like exploratory testing when they try it once. They don't want to go back to any other means of testing. They always want to keep on using exploratory testing. Now how about management? Even if we are convinced as testers that we want to do it, how about rest of a project, rest of a company letting us do exploratory testing? And this often has to do with the fact that exploratory testing does not have as much documentation, so it's not as much proof as that time has been spent wisely. It's not maybe traceability that might be needed to prove to some other parties or stakeholders of the company, like testing has been done. Things like that. So there are maybe downsides to exploratory testing in some people's opinion. So the good side, the good reasons that management or the company management, team management, project management usually needs to hear is that this is faster, this is cheaper, this is easy to use, and you know, management likes money, right? So saying with them that you get more money, more time, more effort out of the tester with same time, it's a good reason for them. Last one there is maybe just slightly different from others, which is saying that you can actually get many things at the same time when you do exploratory testing. Exploratory testing is a really good fit to also invite other people who are not really professional testers into the testing. So you can invite customer representatives, you can invite real users, you can invite business people, because exploratory testing can be used as a group effort or peer effort. So even people without any testing background are happy to do exploratory testing if somebody just explains them, this is how you do it and let's do this next. So it's actually a very concrete and easy way to get into testing. So they might even be able to, from management point of view, they might be able to train their personnel, the real users, into the actual software. At the same time, get some great test results. So this is a good point of view. Okay, so where does exploratory testing fit? It fits obviously into many places. One way to look at it is to see, compare different types of testing by how systematic they are. So here from left to right, you have different types of testing, and the higher you go in the axis in the picture, you see more systematic. So on the right, you could test automation. Now obviously that is really the most systematic way, because you just can't run a test script without having all the detail there. It just doesn't work. So test automation is the most systematic way of testing. But then again, it always does the same thing pretty much in the same way. If you go from left, from that point, you see detailed test cases and high-level test cases. So that would be the scripted testing in a manual way. Let's say with traditional testing as well. And even that, as you notice, can be done in different levels. So not all manual test cases need to be very detailed. You can also have the high-level test cases, which would be just the title of a test. What do you intend to test? and then the tester would invent everything else. So actually that's not in a level of systematicness, that's not that far from exploratory testing actually. It's just that you wrote down the individual ideas of what you would test. But it's more. Let's approach the exploratory testing with ET from left next. So left there you have ad hoc testing. And that's usually referring to something which is just not just testing. You test a little bit, you try it out, things like that. Kind of testing that business users are usually prone to do. If you are inviting people from business to do some of the testing, they are likely to do ad hoc testing. They just ask, so okay, I'll do it. There is an application, and then they start using it, and after some time they say that, I'm done. I did my testing and it looked fine. I maybe found this one defect report. So that's what business often could do. Now that the exploratory testing is out for a long time, people who used to do ad hoc testing, they glorify their testing by saying, we do exploratory testing. So if you see people saying, and I don't mean testers, but business especially, sometimes also testers saying like, yes, we do exploratory testing, and then you look into it a little bit more detail, I think it's actually ad hoc testing. They just test a little bit, they have no idea how much they tested, what kind of coverage they maybe have, they have no traceability. They just spend a little bit of time on testing and they say, no, we are done. So that's not really exploratory testing in my opinion. So to be more systematic than the ad hoc testing, you need to apply a little bit of different focus to understand the whole picture, the whole program, the whole software, and understand which area is more important than another area. Focus your time to the important areas. Leave some notes, make some notes maybe to yourself only, but with these additional items you will actually give control to yourself to the exploratory testing. So it's not only your intuition working for some time, it's also control to yourself, and then you're also able to explain what you did exactly with the testing. To put a bit more systematicness, you can go into the SBTM, session-based test management, and that actually works, I think, best as an exploratory testing approach. So in that way you are actually consciously planning test charters, comparing them with each other, as I said a few slides ago, giving priorities to these different areas, and then deciding how many test sessions should go into each test area. So you actually get a very controlled way of dividing the testing of all your software into smaller pieces, and then you can also follow these smaller pieces by, basically checking a box. Done one session, done next session, and also simultaneously you can observe and report to the rest of the project if you like the progress of your testing, usually with color codes or something similar, green, amber, red, things like that. So system-based test management is really when I teach exploratory testing, this is the type of exploratory testing I teach, because it is usually the middle way that makes everybody happy. It has a flexibility of exploratory testing, at the same time it gives a little bit of control, or at least illusion of control, to the rest of the project, which is very, very important for the bosses and stakeholders and so on. So transparency is out there if you are using SBTM. And if you look at the general or average project, I don't think any project uses only one approach of these listed here. A typical agile project would have plenty of automation, so they would actually do lots of the automation on the right. They might have some high-level test cases also to prove the testing coverage to some stakeholders, and then they could use exploratory testing to mostly find the defects. So a combination like that is quite typical in agile projects. That said, you could do everything with exploratory testing. it doesn't need to be a combination like that. I'm just saying that usually it is, in my experience. So that leads into a decision by anybody who goes into exploratory testing. You need to figure out how much of everything needs to be exploratory, and do you need, by some reasons, something else, like test automation for regression tests, risk management. You probably need some of that, so you probably can't often go all the way to exploratory testing. But how far can you go? Are there restrictions? Are there stakeholders requiring something else? Even if you as a tester are convinced you can do everything with exploratory testing, how about everybody else? Can you convince everybody that exploratory testing is the only means? Maybe you can, great. Maybe you can't, so you need to make a decision of where you actually want to be in your testing strategy. So that's the exploratory testing fix. That's the big picture. All right, so let's go in more detail into how exploratory testing works. So, and I take system-based test management way here. So first you plan. You plan just a little bit. You notice that it shows a little bit weak here, but it says 1 hour. So you plan it with test charter. It's planning, but it can't be a lot of time. It should be just a little bit of time, just a quick overview, still conscious prioritization of different testing areas, and then most of the time, test sessions, most of the time. And then at the end of each session, debriefing. 5 minutes or something, very short time, but regularly. You let the rest of the project know how you are doing. And if you are many exploratory testers, you talk to each other and let everybody know how you are doing. So this is the structure. Test charters, sessions, debriefings, and over again. And that's how it works. Let's make an analogy how exploratory testing works. So this is an analogy about running, jogging, which I do in most conference trips. So this particular example comes from a conference that I was talking in break, in Czech Republic. So here my charter, my focus area would be that, yes, I want to go running, but I would like to find a park, because parks are usually nice places to run. So my focus is, try to find something green. Maps usually have green. Then you have a park or some nature. So here I start with GPS signal, so it shows there. I start from there, and I don't really see much green, just a little bit there, but it's like 200 meters. I can't keep on doing rounds there in that small park. I need to see something else if I'm going to run for an hour or something. So my experience says that this is downhill. That downhill might be a good place to find some parks. They are often in valleys. So I go this way. At this point, more my experience hits in. I see a raised railway bed that has been changed into a bicycle path. So I climb up to this raised bed. I realize that if I'm a little bit higher than the rest of the area, I can see farther. I can probably more easily spot that park that I'm looking for. So I continue this direction, and I all the time look for this green, and obviously look around in general, but also keep my focus on trying to find this green, this park. So this is my charter, and this is my progress. And how about then, keeping rest of the project up to date, keeping my status up to date? Now that is really it should be as automatic as possible, and running is a good example because you actually get automatic status control all the time. So you get a GPS track, you get some additional data as well. So here you can see that I was running like that, and actually this is my whole round. But at this point, actually, I realized that I think I can see something green on the left. This was higher level, so I couldn't go left immediately, so I needed to go there and then walked downstairs. And actually, the next part is obviously what do I found. So in the spot where the arrow is, I found this green, nice park. Now, if you look at the map again, it only shows gray you would expect industrial area or something like that. But it was actually a very nice park. So I found my bug, I found my park, and this big photo is my defect report. And this is what you find when you keep focus. If I had a different focus, like here in Moscow, I went for a run, I wanted to see sights. I ran back there, I took a look at the map. Kremlin is close, I ran there. So I have different focus. So you can have a different focus even if you are in the same neighborhood, same area, same software. So that's an analogy. All right, let's talk about charters a little bit. So what is a charter? So in charter, you should basically record your testing areas and prioritize them. You might have any other ideas when you brainstorm your testing areas. And as always in brainstorming, it's a good idea to write everything down, because the ideas that are left in your head, they are blocking the rest of your creativity. So you should write things down. So a typical charter actually includes something more than just the minimum, which would be really the testing areas and their priorities. So you just write everything down that you might figure out. So within the test charter, you basically do some design. You decide which areas are more important than other areas. So this charter will then be your roadmap that you can use for the whole of your testing. And again, remember that it only takes 1 hour or something to create for many weeks of exploratory testing. Classical example of what a charter looks like is a table. So in a table you would have the areas for testing, and you would have some coverage ideas or priority ideas, and you might have some other information as well if you like. Another example, just to show that there are other ways to show the same information. You could have purposes for different charters or testing areas, and you would have here in this example priorities and not coverage targets. But it works in a very much the same way. So you figure out on high level how can you spend your time in exploratory testing. A typical way how people start test charters is actually using an Excel. Excel is very easy to create. It's also easy to decide what kind of information do I want, or what kind of information we in our project would like to see in the charter. So you can then play with the columns and easily create exactly the kind of charter that your team wants to use. Another way, my favorite, is to use a mind map. Now mind maps are maybe something that fits best in exploratory testing, because in mind maps you can categorize things as you go. When you plan something, it's categorized immediately. And as you notice, the lower part here is logging your test progress, and same thing applies there. You can easily categorize things and your findings as you go. So mind maps are usually a fast way to document something in the light level, which is what you need really in exploratory testing. When you start exploratory testing, it's not only your charter and it's not only your experience, but you are using to decide what to test. Even though these two items are the most important parts. Anything that the world has invented is available to you. You should use that. There are lots of defect catalogs, bug taxonomies, heuristics, test case techniques, maybe legal notices, information from your own project, information from generally about testing. Any of those are good ideas to use in your exploratory testing. So gather all the things next to you in the table or in your computer, and then you start exploratory testing. So that's how it works. Here's an example of bug taxonomies, just to give a little bit more flesh to the ideas of what others have invented. Now Kainer here has figured out that there are these classes of defects, and if you go into the source, it's one of his books, Testing Computer Software, you have many pages of these different typical defects. So how you use this is that you take a look at those and you figure out, interesting defect, could that also happen in my project, in my software? Maybe it could. And when you try to test and find this kind of bug, maybe it couldn't, so you just go to the next one. So all these are sources for ideas. Another thing which is typically used in exploratory testing is heuristics. Now, heuristic is a good fit for exploratory testing because it's a fast way to decide what to do next. So there are rules of thumb about, try this and try that. This typically works. This often finds some problems. To compare heuristics in the test case design techniques, you actually notice that some heuristics can be very similar to test case design techniques. So the difference is philosophical. For example, the boundaries heuristic there says that, if you have a field and you try to identify a boundary, you try a value on a boundary and a little bit bigger, a little bit smaller. And let's make a good test. You likely find defects there. If you compare that to similar technique, you actually get the same test cases, same values. It's just that the technique drives you to get some coverage. A heuristic gives you a hint that you might find a bug here. It's like two sides of a coin. So anyway, heuristics are a good fit, typical fit to exploratory testing. And how about your attitude? How should you work when you do exploratory testing? So this attitude actually might be the main difference between ad hoc testing and exploratory testing. So with exploratory testing, you keep your focus. You are not just looking around the whole software. You have one focus area, one testing area at a time for one session, for one 1 hour or 2 hour session at a time. You keep that focus and you keep notes. Some notes, not too much. You should still mostly execute tests, but some notes. So it's really the attitude thing. You have discipline in your exploratory testing, and then you have that. You can always also show somebody else what you actually did. And how about the actual tests? So the tests, the ideas in your head, they turn into tests. That's the thought process of designing a test on the go. Any kind of idea is good. Ideas is what you get also when you test. You get ideas for further testing. You might look at things from different angles. You might try to go backwards into parallel things, try the same thing in a different way. There are really many different types of thought techniques, and you can practice them. You can be a master of them by practicing. So it all happens during your test session. You design a test and you execute it. So I said note taking is important, so test execution logs, in other words, they are important. You should keep some notes to leave some trace. Usually if you don't, somebody at some point later comes and asks, what did you do? And then you say, I tested for a week. And they might ask, so can you prove a little bit of that? And then it becomes a trust issue, which is fine, of course, but it's also an easy way out to keep notes in any format. The format can be agreed with the rest of the project. And how about defects then? What do you do if you find a defect? Maybe the biggest question is actually, would you file a defect report immediately during your test session or maybe after it? I always say after it because I think during a test session you really need to spend most of the time executing tests. That's what you are supposed to do. 90% of the time, that's a good heuristic. 90% of the time goes into test execution. So if you need to make some notes to remember the defect 2 hours later, make enough notes, take enough screenshots. After your session, quickly do a defect report and off you go. So that's a way to do defects. And how about letting people see where you are going exactly? Now that is via dashboard. So dashboard is the high-level view of showing a graphical where you are. You can use the same charter and just turn it around into a high-level dashboard. So this is a typical way to see it in Excel, or if you look at it in mind map, similarly colors stand out, red, lots of problems, for example. And you can measure exploratory testing, especially if you keep notes, but also in other ways. Time, coverage by the tester's opinion, things like that. It's just a little bit different types of metrics, but you can measure exploratory testing. If somebody says you can't, not true, you can just invent something that fits into your test execution routine. There are lots of tools also, so it's not up to missing some tools. You can always learn some tools. Note-taking tools have a typical fit, but also charter planning tools on the right. There are open source tools, there are commercial tools. World is not short of tool support to exploratory testing. So who can do it? Just a few pointers. Exploratory tester is somebody who can take risks and try new things. Now this would actually fit to any tester, I think. So let's just say that typical characteristics of a good tester are just exaggerated. They are better and bigger in an exploratory tester. Otherwise, anybody can learn exploratory testing. This has been proven by many surveys. It works. The key thing is that exploratory tester must be ready to learn all the time. Keep eyes open, observe the software, learn all the time. And learning is a skill, but you can also practice and try. So this is the key thing. And thinking skill is a variant of that. So you need to be able to observe how you think. What made you decide that I make this test case now? How did I go from one idea in the test case? So by observing your testing continuously, you actually get to be a better tester over and over again. All right, so let's go into the future discussion, which is my last slide. So what is there in the future of exploratory testing? It is becoming the norm, especially in agile projects. It's today considered mostly manual testing. It's how you do manual testing, exploratory testing, but it's also about tools. Exploratory tester can use test automation. They can even use AI, artificial intelligence, in future, for sure. So exploratory tester is a person who gets the ideas, and then you can do a test in any way. Why not also via test automation or with the help of an AI? So there's lots of things to do there. As I said, tool support is also coming up. Most of the big test management tool suites are now equipped with also exploratory testing support. So the rest of them are coming up. It's going to be a must for all tools to have exploratory testing support. So this is close in near future. So I think there's lots of place for exploratory testing all over the world, and yeah, let's use it. So I guess we move into questions. Yeah? Let's open the question. Yeah. All right.
In what format do you generate your?
Yeah.
In what format do you generate your reports?
In what format do I generate my reports? So my favorite format of reporting is using mind map. So I'll just use a mind map, and then I'm using color coding, green, and red. Oh, it is wrong. Oh, that's wrong. How did that happen? Thank you. That's exploring. Hey, glad. All right. Is it only for testers? No, it is definitely for everybody. Testers are the natural fit, but most of the testing done by developers is unit testing, automated unit testing. Well, I just said that tools are also a nice fit to exploratory testing, so yeah, developers can also use exploratory testing. And how about the initial data? What do you need? Well, you actually don't need anything. You can just take your software and start testing. That's really enough. Obviously, if you have some let's say user stories available, why wouldn't you read them? Sure, take anything you get, but you actually don't need anything. A good example of that is a map into a city. Yes, you could have a map in Moscow, and with the map you might do more things, but you actually don't need a map. You can just go out and see things around you and explore without a map. Same applies also to software. You can just go and start. Yeah. Okay. Looks like we are end of our questions. So there's a mic if somebody wants to have one more question. One final question. Who is the courageous person with the question? How do we explore this? There's a hand.
Hello?
Yeah.
Okay. So actually I don't have a question, I kind of want to share my observation. So this is a great example about exploring visible without map. And this kind of highlights that why you need to take notes, right? So if you explore the ground without taking notes, chances are you don't get home the equation.
So not taking takes time out of the testing.
Yes.
That's what you're saying, yeah. And it's true, anything that is out of the testing is a bad thing. So you need to find a balance of fast note taking. So that's why actually lots of the note-taking tools are good help. You can put a video on or something like that. So you actually don't need to take notes. You just test and the tool is taking your notes.
And also those notes and tools, they help contribute, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you can do that. And make some notes also. If you find an idea, the tool can't capture your idea because that's only in your head, but the tool can log everything that you did. So you can then enter your idea, just one sentence every now and then. Most of the note taking can be automatic.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you everybody. Let's go to listen to the final keynote.